Thank you for joining us this evening for the Artists Exchange, a group created by and for artists to share new work, ideas, and resources monthly, or actually it's bi-monthly these days, over a glass of wine or tea as you prefer. Please let us know where you are from in the chat. Then grab your beverage and join us as we discover the work of two wonderful artists. I am Shelley Rugg, the Executive Director at Gallery Route 1 and co-producer of the Artist Exchange. For our presentation tonight, we ask that you please stay muted until we ask you to unmute. For best viewing, select Speaker View from the top right corner of the Zoom viewing screen. We want you to know that we are recording today's presentation for future viewing on our website and YouTube channel. And I am going to invite you, if you do visit our YouTube channel, to subscribe. All right. Now, please join me in welcoming writer, co-producer, and host of the Artist Exchange, Pamela Blotner, an East Bay artist whose sculpture and drawings examine wildlife and environmental destruction. She has taught at several universities, including the University of San Francisco Art Institute, and at Pixar Animation Studios. In 2017, she was appointed a U.S. Arts Envoy to Burma. Here we go, Pamela.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay, and I get the pleasure of introducing our artists, our guests, Jeannie O'Connor and Marilyn Levin. Marilyn Levin, I'm sorry. And but they both use mixed media in their multi-layered works, including photographs, cardboard, and paint. These two-dimensional structures often evoke the movement of a Mobius strip, each twist alternately attracting and or repelling the viewer. Okay, now I would like to begin with Jeannie, simply because I've known her longer. And Jeannie's work is in a space between photography and painting. She often uses an unaltered image for portraits and a mixed media process for urban architecture. Her studio is in the heart of West Oakland, which has been going through a rapid gentrification since she moved there in 2008. Abandoned building surfaces near her studios reflect turf wars, including graffiti between taggers and landlords, which she draws upon in her own work. Okay, welcome, Jeannie.
Thank you, Pamela, and thank you, Gallery Route 1, for hosting these wonderful exchanges. They're terrific. So we can start. Slide 1. While that's coming, I'll just tell you that I'm starting here in 2008 when I moved to Magnolia. I'm next to Magnolia Editions, if anyone's local. I can't see slides. Are they?
I'm working on it, Jeannie.
Okay.
Apologize for the delay.
So I'll keep talking. I can talk. So what happened, I didn't know I was landing in my dreamland because all around me were buildings that were industrial. It was an industrial and manufacturing part of West Oakland, especially during World War II and into the 60s. So there were these wonderful warehouses around. And right down the hall from me was this gorgeous room. And I loved it so much, just the whole feeling of it and the light coming in, so dreamy. So you can move on, please. Next. So what I've done for many years since the 90s was go to salvage yards, find, this was a recycled mirror, or a repurposed mirror. And I set the image into it and the wings come forward. They don't look it in the picture, but it really interested me to move two-dimensional work into, I'd call it kind of a relief space. Next. I'm telling a bit of a secret in that when you're looking at an image, I'm starting with a photograph. Up until 2000, they were all black and white. After that, because of technology, digital technology just took over. The images can be color or desaturated. I print them on a clear film. You're seeing the back of that. And then I build up several layers of paint on the film and hinge it to paper, where I build up collage on the right side. Next. So what you'll see is this is that piece. So all the color, everything included is altered by the work beneath, because it's an interesting question, and it's one that I thought about for a long time, was that I wanted the photograph to remain a photograph, not cut it up, but to still have the advantage of the three-dimensional quality that you get from adding layers. Next. So here was a building in an artist studio on Eddy Street, and it was just gorgeous. Just that was the surface. And then I've added other paint and you can sort of get some space created by the way, just like in painting, but in the same way, darks and lights and how to move an image. Just sort of accentuate what I find or add to what I find. Next.
Sorry.
Here's a building that just inspired me to get even wackier with the collage, because the building already looked like a quilt. I mean, this is it. It's on MacArthur. If you live locally, you sort of know this building. But one thing that I learned by being in the neighborhood from 2008 on is things change fast. And a lot of gentrification was going on, as Pamela said, and buildings became condos. So I just laughed out loud when I saw this. I thought, you can't be that good. And so I photographed it, then I repainted and I collaged. And then this is the first time I thought, why not the sky? So it was an inspiring building. And now it's all covered in blue and looks terrible. So it's fleeting. Next. This one I just love because it was a rainy day. I was on the way to the studio and I saw this building, and I have architectural lenses, and they give you the ability to take a shot low and take a shot high so you don't get parallax. So I ran to get my camera and I came back, and here this man just crossed the street. And I thought, oh, he really made this lovely by crossing at an angle right in front. And what I think is the visual joke is that someone took a roller and went across two buildings like they're flat. And that really made me laugh. I don't remember if you remember Disney when they would sometimes show their hand in their cartooning. I always thought that was terrific. So this flattening of two three-dimensional spaces was funny. Next. When I went to India, which is twice, once with Marilyn to Sanskriti, I would shoot Indian images and then set them into frames. But in this case, I had the frames made in India. And next. Another one, the miniatures that we saw in Bundi, in the palace in Bundi and all over it, were so inspiring. So this was a fun way to have an interaction between the frame and image. Next. We're trying to be quick. So this is the last of 3 works I did. This one is called, well, this was a great building in Richmond with California furniture with a map of California hanging off. But I titled it California Burning, and it has the color, looks a little pale here, but it's good, orange, that our skies have had in these smoky days. We're having one right now, by the way. It's kind of crazy in California. So this, if you look at the frame, I found 3. Let's go next. So this one is the same. So I got a set of these frames at, again, a salvage yard. And this time I decided to move the collage and edging and even ribbon and a title plaque onto the edges of the meeting. And this one really broke my heart because I feel it so strongly. I miss the movies. And I was in Oakland and I saw the Fox Theater locked up. And little did I know that all these theaters were closed a few years later. So the third one next. This was PS Print. It's a lovely building. There's not many left from those days of cars with big fins. And so this sign was wonderful. And I added collage and paint to this frame. So they're all the same frame, but they had slightly different treatment. Next. So in the meantime, right now, I'm in the middle of a series photographing water in Monterey as people walk through a waterfall that they've set up in the aquarium. So next. So this is pure, no additional painting or anything. It's just, you never see water, you know? The ability to stop it is great. And next. Okay, so you can see, and that's again the worry about what's coming. We can't ignore now what is happening in our environment. And next, I'm doing a second part with some photographs. Imogen Cunningham was an inspiration to me. I met her in the 70s, and she was so encouraging. This time she was at the Art Institute with that with her cape on, and she looked at me and flung it over her shoulder and said, "Immortalize me."
Oh.
So the next one. And there she is. Oh, it's too small. I'm sorry. But we went out photographing on Fillmore. She was just a delight and an inspiration and very encouraging. Next. And then I did a series, thank you, Lee, who's here watching, at Creative Growth. And I thought, why not make a chalkboard behind everyone? Let them draw and some did their portrait and others just drew. But to have a double self-portrait, a drawn one and a photograph one. And everyone got to use this fun. They had a lot of fun doing this because I have a long extended shutter release that they can operate and take their own picture. Next. Danny, who's very talented, of course, did his thing, and it's lovely. Next. And Shelley, I think, was doing she did do a self-portrait. This is black and white. In the meantime, I shot a bunch of digital pictures. So you saw them having fun and bright color and everything, but these were rather nice. And next, this is the last series. I'm preparing a large show at the San Francisco Public Library. I photographed at AIDS centers for 5 years. And you can just progress through these, Shelley. They're just 4x5. What was important, do you see her hand? She's holding the shutter release too. Because in this situation where everybody was in their 20s and 30s with death sentences, I thought, I can't photograph the normal. I have to give some agency to the sitters. This is a Greek man, Christo. So they were often taking their own self-portrait. A couple. So there were 4 centers for AIDS services, and I would go to all of them once a year. Through Sharon Siskin, who invited me to be a guest artist. And is there one after that, or is that it?
That's the last one.
So I sped through, but there you go. I've always done sort of 2 lines of work. I didn't want to leave the studio. I love the studio and painting and collage, but I love the portrait. So I do both. Thank you.
Jeannie, thank you. It's a real thrill for me not having seen a lot of that work and seeing the diversity of it. It's very, it's going to be very good to see what Marilyn has to say. But first, I'll talk a little bit about Marilyn. And her recent work, she says, is a comment on the refuse that pollutes, our environment and taxes our planet's resources. By repurposing found cardboard packaging and leaving the marks of their original use visible. She creates artwork that can be appreciated formally and aesthetically. Her current work uses non-traditional portraits, metallic abstractions, drop cloths, and repurposed cardboard boxes to capture environmental degradation and the difficult political times we live in. Thank you, Marilyn. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Pamela and Shelley, very much for inviting me to speak with Jeannie, who I've known for a long time. And I do think that some of the issues that we deal with cross over. I'm going to speak mostly about my aesthetic and how I got to where I am today. I believe that an artist's aesthetic really is embedded in the artist, and as much as we try different things, work in different media, or present ourselves in different ways, there's something that always comes through and lasts. And so I'm going to take you through a little bit of history of my work, and we hopefully you'll see this line of thinking that is developing in my work. So first slide, please. This is this is a very recent work. It's called Bonnard's Box. Bonnard has always been a big influence on me coloristically. And as Pamela mentioned, during the pandemic, I became obsessed with the fact that there were cardboard boxes everywhere and they were getting thrown away. So I was collecting them. And I was very interested in the marks that were already on the cardboard. So I used them as part of the elements of the work. I also was very interested in the color and the way the color changed because of the lighting. If the flaps overlapped a certain color, it changed that color. If the flaps overlapped the wall in some way, there were shadows on the wall. It doesn't show in this particular one, but next, please. This is a detail of that same painting. So you get to see more of the cardboard, the integrity of the cardboard coming through, and the folds and the marks that were already there that I was working from. Next slide. This is a cardboard piece that I painted in 1976. I was teaching at Tufts, but I was on sabbatical and I was in California, and I wanted to paint on something that I could fold up and ship back easily. So I started collecting very big cardboard boxes from furniture stores. And this is actually a cardboard box for a recliner chair. That's why it has a piece that goes onto the floor. When I work on these cardboard boxes, I do not add anything to what already exists. So this piece that comes onto the floor was there. And a lot of the marks that were that you see on the cardboard now were there. I did add some marks of my own, but this is a good example of what comes around goes around. So that this was done in 76, and now I'm back at the cardboard again. So it's been a medium that I've been interested in for a long time. Next. This is a sketch called Window View Study. It was done in 1980, and it's when I began to break away from the figure. I had studied with Richard Diebenkorn at UCLA, and I was very much influenced by him, and I was trying very hard to find my own voice and get away from his influence. So I totally removed the figure from my work, and I started looking out of the window of my studio and dealing with formal issues as opposed to the figurative issues that I was dealing with before. Next. This is a series called the Light and Motion series, and this was a very successful series. This is oil paint on prepared rag paper, and you can see that I've used some tape and also some metallic pigment. At the time, I was teaching color theory at Wheaton College, And I was riding the subway one day, and I was very interested in what happened at the edge of the window as the light passed, and the way the light influenced the color and the movement from left to right. Next slide, please. This is part of the same series, but you can see that the windows have become bigger. There's not as much movement from left to right, and the color is much more subtle. Next. This is a piece, a very recent piece. It was in my show that just ended a few months ago at Desta Gallery in Mill Valley. The metallic surface has become very important, but that metallic surface first appeared in my work in the Light and Motion series. And ever since then, I've been incorporating metallics into my work. Now, because of what's happening to the environment and there's so much pollution, the metallic has become much more important. And this is a piece that is 6 feet by, no, I'm sorry, 4 feet by 6 feet. And it's called Shifting Plates. And it has to do with what's happening to our Earth. Next. This also is using a lot of metallic paint. It's a tide pool from Point Lobos. And it was also in the Desta Gallery show. I use a lot of metallic paint in these, and I build up my surfaces and sometimes scrape them away so that you get some of the color coming from underneath, which I think is something that Jeannie does. And I mean, she doesn't scrape surfaces, but she has the color coming through, and that's a very important part of my work. Next. This is a very large painting. It was recently purchased by the Weissman Art Museum in Minneapolis. It's called A Larger Truth. And again, it's about the environment and what is polluting our, our environment and what we breathe and what we live with. Next. Okay. This, I'm sorry that these are so small, but this goes back to a period when I was painting vessels. It was right after my father passed away, and I was very interested in the vessel form. But you can see these vessels are becoming very figurative. And again, I'm going back to my beginnings. The figure keeps recurring in my work, even though this is a group of 6 paintings and there's a grid which deals with the formalism that I'm interested in. Still the images of the vessels are layered and very figurative. Next. Then Trump got elected and the figure became even more important. I was very, very politically upset by what was going on, and this painting was painted as part of the Black Lives Matter movement. Next. This one is called Me Too. So again, political, related to the Me Too movement. And in both of these paintings, you can see I'm still using a lot of metallic, but figurative reference. This one more abstract than the one you saw before that. Next, please. Now we're getting back to what I'm doing right now. This is a cardboard piece. It's hard to see, but the left and right lower flaps come out and they reflect a shadow on the color underneath them. And unfortunately, this slide doesn't show it very well. Next, please. This is another cardboard piece. It's called Unboxed for Jessie, which was my daughter. And you can see, again, the flaps are very important, the shadows on the wall. There's a lot of tape that existed on the piece. And again, there's sort of a movement from left to right, which harkens back to the light and motion pieces. But the color is very different. Next. This one is called Fragile Art. And this is a box that I got from Blick Art Supplies. And if it's hard to see, but on the left, there's the word fragile, which is I left showing. And on the right, there's a tiny little piece of graphics that says art, which you can't see it all on the slide, but it was to me, it was very important to keep those words visible on this piece, besides using the tape and the variegations of the cardboard. Next. This is a very new piece. It's smaller. I'm working smaller now. This was a box that a book came in, and I was very interested again in what happens inside of the box as well as outside of the box. I think there's a detail next. Did we leave? Yes, there's a detail. So you can see how there's sort of a hidden element here that I want people to be fascinated by. Next. This is called tunnel vision. So I'm getting even more three-dimensional in the cardboard work. I can't seem to get away from the cardboard. I'm fascinated by it, besides feeling like it's important to repurpose it. And this is, I think, the last slide.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Thank you, Marilyn. That was great.
You're
And it
welcome.
certainly was interesting seeing both of you work with what Jeannie calls salvage works, or present salvage works. But I will resist asking you things myself, because you have 10 minutes to talk to each other. Please.
I don't think we've ever had a conversation in 10 minutes, but we can try.
We can try. I was saying this from the beginning. Marilyn was, her work represented to me sort of the road not taken, because Nancy went to graduate school with me at Berkeley. We were working with Bischoff, and that school of painting was still strong at Berkeley. And you were working with Diebenkorn, and those ideas of space that came from Hans Hofmann's School of Visual Arts in New York were still important. And so when I look at Marilyn's work, I feel like I really understand it. I feel like, oh, I grew up with that. I know that work. I know what you're doing with space. That's interesting. So mine, went off into a wackier space. It's sort of like you're building it, but you're still confined to one point perspective, like a camera, but interesting for me, Marilyn. And your color. One thing that's hard for every artist for slides, Marilyn's color is gorgeous. And the slides look good, the work looks better, it's really great.
Thank you, Jeannie. I relate a lot to your images. I see, my light and motion series, my formalism issues in your work, and the richness of your color. I think that also you build up color in much the way that I do, and it's quite beautiful and intriguing. And I'm also have always had a strong interest in architecture, and so to that too. But I think there's a lot of crossovers in our work.
Right. The architecture is interesting because I didn't find one, but imagine those drawings you see of children do, and it's like the house, the tree, the dog, the family, and some flowers always, and a lot of times the sun. And it's almost every mode of art, and I thought, oh, well, I picked people and the house. But I'm really interested in that. And also just the space of architecture. I love it. And traveling to Rome and India was very informative for seeing having a deeper look at architecture, and especially what the Mughals brought to India was fascinating, because it's the mix of the two that is so great.
And I've always been fascinated with India because of the color, the richness of the color. You just see it everywhere, not just in the miniatures, which have always inspired me, but you walk down the street and the women, they're digging ditches, but they're wearing these incredible starry silk saris, you know, with oranges and reds and jewels on their ankles, and it's the colors everywhere, and there are little altars everywhere on street corners, and almost everywhere you go, you see orange, particularly because that's an important color for them. But they also, for some reason, they have this fascination with aluminum foil, and they cover a lot of the figures with aluminum foil, and that relates to my my silver paint too. So
The metallic.
fascinated with the metallic and the way it relates to the intense cadmium colors.
That's something that's been fun for me doing this lecture, is that for so many years, I worked with different galleries. They didn't show portraits. We can't sell them. We can't, you know, and it was limiting for me because I always did them, but I didn't have and now in my dotage, I think it's great to use every single part of yourself as an artist. And I've been doing more with the portraits that I take, and I find them fascinating. Also find them, I was thinking about something. When you're doing a portrait, you need timing, and you need to make a connection with people. You need to see fast. And when you're looking at a building, or you're photographing or working on an image in the studio, you're in slow time more. And I love both those kinds of time.
Jeannie and Marilyn and the gentle people, as much as I would like to hear more of you, and I'm sure that our audience would, I think it's time that we invite them in. Our time is quickly melting. Would some of you in the viewing audience have a few questions for our artists? And you can raise the graphic hand, or you can just speak out, or reach out, as the vernacular goes. Let's see.
I was just going to say, comments are also acceptable. If you don't have any questions, you can always make remarks. Oh, I see a hand raised. Go ahead, Judy.
Hi there. I have a question for Marilyn. The cardboard piece, I think it was second to last, right before the virtual reality goggles. I forget the name of that one.
Yes.
Not only is it getting more three-dimensional, but it's also developing a shape that's not a straight line. And I was wondering if either the figure is starting to creep back in, or since they're getting more three-dimensional, you ever see them coming off the wall?
Great question. Yeah, it was a definite conscious decision to make that shape that's different than the getting away from the grid of the cardboard, which happens over and over again. I never thought of them as figurative, but I could see well, probably not, but maybe those figures are creeping back and I keep pushing them away. Good question.
Yeah.
How about coming off the wall? How about being freestanding ever?
Oh, yes. Well, when I did the cardboard originally in 76, I had several pieces that were sat on the floor, came off the wall, that you could walk around and see three-dimensionally. I have some ideas right now, some plans to make some that are completely three-dimensional, but I have not yet. But they're coming. They're coming.
They are coming. It looks.
Yes.
So, anyone else? Anything that you would like to comment upon?
I see Ellen. You need to unmute, Ellen. Ellen, you need to unmute.
I tuned in late.
Ellen?
Yes, Ellen Rich. I tuned in late, Marilyn, and but I really enjoyed seeing your work, and I love the color. And do you? I guess you don't, because you want to maintain the color of that beautiful cardboard. Do you prime it with anything at all, or?
Yes, I do. I use acrylic matte medium. I
Uh-huh.
use several layers in order to protect the cardboard and also to help form the folds, some of those flaps that are folded over. I want them to be in a certain form. I don't want them to just free form flap. So I use the acrylic medium to sculpt them. And it's really interesting because those pieces from 1976, I still have some of them, and they are very strong and very, very much like they were when they were first made. So I'm glad to know,
That's great.
because people are very reluctant to deal with cardboard. They think it's very perishable, and it also keeps galleries from wanting to show it because they think they can't sell it, which I thought was interesting when Jeannie said that the galleries didn't want to show her portraits. It's, it's difficult because sometimes you just have this need to work in a certain way to portray a certain feeling, and the gallery doesn't necessarily like that or think they can sell it.
Right.
I saw those blue Robert Rauschenberg pieces at the Guggenheim, those cardboard boxes long ago. I think they're still going strong.
Yeah, I think they are. Good
Mhm.
point.
Many years ago, like 1975 or 6 or 7 or in there somewhere, when we were neighbors of Marilyn's, Rob, who is an architect, we did a barter, and Rob did some work for Marilyn on her kitchen, I believe. And in return, she gave us what do you call 4 things? Not a triptych, a quartet of 4 boxes that were opened up, each a variation on a theme, I guess I would say, not being an artist in myself, that's what I would call it, of kind of purpley pinks and blues, framed in a very simple sort of workman kind of way.
And they're doing fine
And they're
today.
doing just fine today in our
That's great.
in our granddaughter's bedroom, along the wall. So she wakes up every morning and sees them, and they're doing great.
Great influence for her. And you've been great supporters. You own several of my pieces, including
Yeah, we do.
window
We-
views. Yes.
Right.
I-
Yeah, we have a vessel and a big one, big one, and some other very more personal things that you've made for us through the years. So we thank you.
Thank you.
Tell them about ours.
No.
Anyone else?
Marilyn,
Move on.
Yes. Yes.
you did a fabulous progression after your father died. It was
Yes.
just unbelievable. Why aren't you showing that tonight?
Well, I
Where,
did show
where
the
it went?
I did show that grid of, there were 6 of the vessels, and I spoke about the fact that I did those after he passed away. I didn't have enough time to show as much as I would have liked, but thank you, Dr. Zinn, the psychiatrist.
That was such a special series. Blew me away.
Good.
Oh.
I'm glad you appreciated it and still do.
I wish
I
we-
see someone in the audience who's a sculptor, Danny. Hi, Danny.
Hi. Hi,
And
Jeannie.
I'm just thinking, did you move right into 3-dimensional work, or did you do a shallower space? Just curious. Because Danny does sculpture, 3D.
Oh, I've always been a sculptor at heart, I think. I do some, flat work, too, but
Yeah.
I like moving around the piece, yeah.
I've always sort of liked, I don't know if you call it relief space, just that shallow space where there's so much tension between a flat and when it starts to project, it's really something. I think that's from that training too, because all Hans Hoffman cared about was push-pull, if you remember him. It was space, it was creating space on a flat surface. And that's still fascinating, even though it's changed, But I think, Danny, people do come fully ready to go 3D. And I think that's interesting that Marilyn and I sort of ride that line a little bit between a shallower space right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I'd like to see some of Danny's work, so maybe it'll influence some of my more dimensional work.
Danny's in my, both of us are in Transmission Gallery, and you had a recent show, Danny, probably not coming up soon. You just did one, didn't you?
Yeah, it's around March or so, something like that. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I'll look
It
for
was,
it.
went well.
That seems
Thanks.
like a great segue into our closing section, artist opportunities. What do you think, Pamela?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I was just typing you a message asking if I can go ahead and talk about that, or you can.
Go ahead, Pamela.
Okay. Well, as we said earlier, the Artist Exchange was created to provide a platform for artists to learn about each other's work, processes, and techniques. It's also a forum for finding out about various opportunities for artists. And if you know of an opportunity for artists or have seen a good exhibition, anything that you'd like to share, please share them with us now.
And I would like to kick it off by inviting Danny to put a link to his exhibition in the chat for us so that people can easily find it.
I'll see what I can do. Thank you.
Sure.
I'd like to say something about a site Brooklyn. It's a facility in Brooklyn, New York, and they've been having a lot of online exhibitions that are open to people across the country. And they have very interesting curators, and it's great exposure. They have themes, and I looked it up so I could share their next competition, but unfortunately they don't have one right now. They have a show up called Color, and they haven't announced yet what their next outreach is. But if you go to sitebrooklyn.com, you can get on their mailing list, and you will get all of the information about their coming up shows. And I have been in 2 of their shows and have gotten really good exposure from them. So I think it's a good site for people to latch onto and take part in.
I don't, can anybody hear me? I don't know what happened to my picture. Okay, I managed to disappear my picture, but Mercury 20 Gallery is having a juried show right now for the next couple week, 2. And the juror is the curator of the Berkeley Arts Center. And if you go to Mercury 20 Gallery website, you can link in to participate. And I hope a lot of you take opportunity to do this. I think it'll be a great show, and she's a very interesting curator.
There's a show that Pamela asked me about, that Sanchez Center, that's 50-50. You have to make 50 pieces, 6 by 6. And it's a fundraiser, really. But it's sort of a challenge. It's like, what can you put together? They give you 6 by 6 inch wooden panels. And you can have fun with them, and they sell for, $190 or something. So it's kind of fun, but it's done, but it'll come in again next. Look at it in the late summer. Look for it. It's a yearly.
Can you type the name of the place in the chat for us?
Sure.
And I just want to throw this out there before anybody exits this evening. If you want to hear about future Artist Exchange events, it would be great if you could put your email address in the chat if you're not already getting our e-blasts on the regular, and then we can add you to our email list.
And I'd like to jump in selfishly and take a plug for Carol Newborg and myself, who have a show that will be opening next month on the 14th at the Abrams Claghorn Gallery. And that's 1251 Solano Avenue, a wonderful gallery owned and run by Robbie Abrams. And let's see, what else? Oh yes, it's at the end of Solano, almost at San Pablo. So come if you can.
And I could pitch the San Francisco Public Library show will run a long time from October 14th through the end of February, but the opening is November 4th, and there'll be a panel that's not decided yet toward the end, and it's the complete body of work of the AIDS portraits, the 6 years of work. So it's a big show.
Great.
Well, I'm going to jump in and talk about Gallery Route 1. We are a nonprofit art gallery. And so if you want to show photographic portraits, you can, because our purpose is to provide an opportunity for artists to really stretch and explore and not have to worry about the kind of things that commercial galleries require of artists quite often. And we are accepting new members at Gallery Route 1. The next deadline to apply is the end of this month. So I'm going to go ahead and drop a link for that in the chat. Oh, back up. Let's try that again.
Look at the spelling.
And, yeah, so I'll put that in the chat for you guys so you can check that out.
I noticed actually just today that the Bedford Gallery in Walnut Creek just announced a collage competition. It's not going to be for till 2024, I believe.
Oh.
But and their deadline, I wrote it down here, the deadline is April 18th, 2024. But if you are interested in collage, might be interested in submitting.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
That curator, the new curator, I would say new because Carrie Lederer was there so long, came through the jury for the Emeryville, which I should announce. Emeryville Arts, Celebration of the Arts, is opening next week. And that'll run for about 6 weeks too.
You do for the,
I do that, but she was one of the jurors and lovely. So that would be, I think it'd be great to show at the Bedford.
where's the guy who had the painting?
Sounds really fun. I want to mention another opportunity at Gallery Route 1 is we have a fellowship program for artists 21 to 40 years old, and we're right now accepting applications for that program for 2024 season. And I put the a link to get information about that in the chat. And so if you or someone you know fits that description and you think would be a great fit for a fellowship program, please reach out.
Tell them what they get from us if they do that.
Sure. Artists who are in our fellowship program get several opportunities to have shows in the gallery. They get to have a small space show solo, and then they will have we try to have 2 fellows every year, so they'll have a larger exhibition in the main center gallery that they will share, and they will be able to participate as an artist member without having to pay the dues. They will get $1,000 to offset their exhibition costs. They can participate in the members group exhibition that happens every year. They can enter the juried shows. They could potentially be hired to teach art to kids through our Artists in Schools program. So a lot of opportunities to just find out what Gallery Route 1 is all about as a nonprofit organization.
Mhm,
and be supported by a lot of experienced artists.
mhm.
All right. Well, any other exciting shows that we need to see out there?
There's a show at the Show Gallery, SHOH, and it's a small gallery in Berkeley, 7 women, and I'm in that. Jan Worm curated. You had to put in one work from the 80s and one work that's current, and it's kind of fun to see how people progress.
Nice.
It's up for a little bit, yeah.
Do they, Jeannie, do they ever provide opportunities for other artists?
I think they do, but Julie is the director, and I would talk to her. It's very casual. It's on Gilman and 4th Street, and you can stop by and talk to her, I think. I haven't seen calls for work right now, though.
Any of
They do have
do that.
They have guest curators there, so I think
that's good.
People can propose shows, I would think. Propose to be a guest curator if they'd like.
Yeah.
That reminds me of another exciting piece of information coming from Gallery Route 1. I'm sorry to keep harping on this, but there's so much. This is our 40th year as a nonprofit art organization. And so we're really excited about that. But we also have a program called the Latino Photography Project, which is in its 20th year. And we got a wonderful opportunity to put together a show for Artworks Downtown, which is a retrospective of works done in this program. And there's also a documentary that was made about the program that is you can live stream from KQED. It got picked up by PBS. So if you want to check it out, the program we call Latino Photography Project, but the film was named Latinx Photography Project. So that's how you can find it. And I want to just say that I noticed Laura looked like she wanted to say something.
She did. She wanted to mention I'm having a show right now if you're in Boston at Gallery K Office. So I hope you'll stop by and see my work.
Congratulations.
Good.
Thank you.
One more thought, Danny. Transmission doesn't so much have calls, but right downstairs at Gearbox Gallery often has calls for work. Watch them because they'll often have you, submit work for
Come and close it.
Gearbox.
Wow.
All right, thanks for that. Well, Pamela, if it's okay, and Marilyn and Jeannie, if we wrap up at this point.
Just say thank
you.
So like I said, if you want to be added to our email list, make sure you put that in the chat before you leave. Pamela, did you want to say something before I close up?
No, I just wanted to thank our audience for coming. It's great. There's some new faces to our group, and we have to thank Jeannie and Marilyn for doing that. And please come back again.
Marilyn.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks. It's a fun forum.
Yes.
Wonderful. If you're interested in appearing and presenting your work as an artist in a future artist exchange event, send an email to PamelaBlotner@gmail.com. And we're also, it's a free program, but we are accepting donations. So I did put a link in the chat for you to make it really easy for you to go onto our website and select Artist Exchange from the drop-down menu and show us some love. We really hope to build a budget for this program so that we can provide stipends to the artists who are so generous with their time and sharing their talents. And like we said earlier, this used to be a monthly event. Now it's every other month. So our next show will be November 15th. So mark your calendars, and you can always check our website or our Facebook page or our Instagram to be informed about our upcoming events.
And we do have, I do have one of the two surprise artists who will appear, Lori Mahan Sawyer, who is a painter and a science illustrator, and she now has work up in one of our 3 galleries at Gallery Route 1. So bye.
Yeah, part of our visiting artist program.
Great.
Anybody who's interested in sharing works about the environment, immigration, social justice, things like on those themes, you can submit a proposal to our visiting artist program. All right, so thank you everyone for coming, and hopefully we'll see you November 15th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.